Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Xner's Fireside Chat. It's been quite some time since I last did this, and I believe last time I did this with a player, at least, it was with one of your former teammates in Stamina. But this time, I've got Slight. He's ex-Strife, so obviously, you're coming fresh off the back of that. But first things first, how you doing today?
Doing amazing. Obviously a little down or a little sad that my tenure with Strife came to an end, but I think it was just best for both parties in the end. So I am now focusing on my future, and I'm excited for those opportunities that are going to come up.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Again, we'll probably dive into the whole Strife thing a little bit later, but I kind of want this to be focused on you as a player and kind of your just tenure overall, your history, and obviously many different leagues. But kicking things off, the first thing that kind of piqued my interest with your ESEA career and kind of going through your history is you didn't have a lot of time in advance. It seemed like you had a pretty good connection. I remember at one point you were playing with Eco Fraggers Anonymous, that team
Yeah.
way back when. I actually got to cover you all quite a bit when
Yeah, I
you all were
remember
coming
that.
up. But yeah, talk me through. First of all, what sort of connections you had because you ended up, making the move up not necessarily through the relegation system, but you were able to get a position in the old Secret Club roster. So how
Yeah.
exactly did that take place? I mean, what sort of connections did you have?
That connection was with Wolfie. Wolfie's one of my better friends that I've made through Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
I love Wolfie, and I got introduced to him through an old teammate who was like housing him at the time. He was letting him live with him because they both lived in Florida, and so he would tell me a lot about Wolfie, and it was just like this guy is like literally like
Yeah.
your twin. He's like your Swedish twin. You
Yeah.
guys play
Yeah.
the same. You guys talk the same, and he like DM'd me on ESEA. He was like, you want to run some pugs? I was like, absolutely. So ran some pugs, and then um eventually when that season was starting for ECL, like I didn't really have a team. My team like kind of just died, if I remember correctly. So I was just gonna like I was planning on pugging out the season with just some friends,
Mhm.
and Wolfie messaged me. He was just like, "Hey man, like we need someone to fill in for scrims tonight. Like, are you available?" I was like, "Sure." Hopped in, played some scrims with them, and at the time, Secret Club like decided that they were gonna play the season super late in terms of when the season was starting, so they didn't have a lot of time. So
Yeah.
like didn't have a lot of people to try out. And I was an opper, and on that team I was rifling, which is something I'd not done since like intermediate. So I was very inexperienced, but Wolfie just ended up deciding that he wanted to give me a chance on the team, and so that was my first big team. Even though I was a rifler on it, but it was still a very good, very big learning experience for me, and it like I definitely took a very big jump, from being an advanced. And like I'm pretty sure on my history, like the last team I played for was Team Hyper, and like
Yeah.
we were like, our team like died. We were
Right.
not that good. So going from like that to a team that got third in ECL the season before was a huge jump. But you know, I didn't like feel a lot of pressure. I didn't feel like um I was confident. I just played my game. I just you know did what I did, and I didn't do too bad. Like my like statistics wise, like you look at that
Yeah.
season as a rifler, and I did not do too bad. Like even though I didn't play like all those matches, but it was still a very good experience. And yeah, credit to Wolfie. I love Adam. Shout out
Yeah.
Adam.
Yeah. No, I've had a good interview with him, and even Stamina had kind of mentioned something interesting about learning play styles and stuff. I know that you mentioned you were kind of his like twin. He was your Swedish
Yeah,
twin, but I mean, I think you do have a lot of similarities. Did you learn a lot from playing alongside Wolfie, even as a rifler, but also as an opper as well?
I've learned a substantial amount from Wolfie. He's every time I talk to him, he'll just talk to me about like tips. Like he's always watching me. I'll watch his games sometimes. I'll watch his
Yeah.
demos. But I've learned so much from him, just like how he would kind of op like on Secret Club, even when he was rifling, just like how vocal he was, just like how he played. He definitely deserved to be on ecstatic and like go and make that run that they did up to the top 30, because
Yeah.
he's a very very talented player, and he's a very good person, and he's a very good teammate, and I've learned a lot from him.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I think the same. I think he was very underrated. Obviously,
Yeah,
I think they had
100%
a
agree.
very early high, and then obviously they couldn't get
Yeah,
that same form back. But yeah, I mean that's interesting because again, that history. You mentioned the big jump. You mentioned that the pressure didn't get to you. And you are one of the few players that kind of hopped into ECL as like a big move up. I don't think you have advanced playoff experience, do you?
Nope.
So you made the
Never
move up
played advanced playoffs.
with very little experience. I mean, what do you kind of accredit the success of your season? Was it playing with a team that was experienced, like it was with Jitter or Rec or something along those lines with Secret Club? I mean, how were
Yeah.
you able to get away with dropping those stats and not like folding underneath the pressure?
I think that just comes down to like more of just like me as a person. Um, I don't get that nervous or like
Yeah,
I when I'm just like very confident, when I have that confidence in myself and I believe in myself, like I'm not gonna like get that nervous. Obviously, I'm gonna get nervous doing like a clutch or something, but like
yeah,
I'm not gonna be like shaking going into a match. But um, the team was very loose. It was very like calm. It was like it was very very loose with how we played. So like I kind of just like did what I wanted, just kind of felt the game, played my game, and that worked for the most part. Like Wolfie was our IGL, he was very loose, very loose caller. So it was kind of just like a mixed pug. And at the time, that was something I was like decent at, was just
yeah,
like being like sort of like a pugger and not like entirely a team player. And so it just kind of worked for that part of my career. I
yeah,
guess being like inexperienced kind of helped me at that moment on that team with just like I didn't know a lot, but what I did know, I just did it,
yeah,
even though it wasn't like I was just confident in what I knew because I didn't know any better.
yeah.
Like I didn't know like how to play my role or just anything. So I was just kind of freeballing it, and it just kind of worked.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense again, with the shaking off the pressure there straight up. So I mean obviously that went pretty well, but obviously you didn't play the next season
Yeah,
with the same team. Again, I kind of forget what happened with Secret Club. It was a roster I thought quite highly of, but it was a tough season for you all. I think that was the introduction of the best of threes that ECL started
yeah.
adding as well. So you were able to transition into at least the team that eventually became Strife. I'm not sure if it was Strife at the time, but talk me through, introducing yourself with this roster because, again, it shows an impressive bit of form that you had, just consistently being able to play ECL after your first season. A lot of players, they typically make it to ECL, they'll play a season, they get that experience, but then they get relegated, something along those lines. But you're an exception to that.
Um, I landed on Recon 5 at the time was the
Yeah.
team, and that was with Saturn and Aosin, who were like kind of rebuilding it from what had been the season before, and
Mm.
they just need new players. Me and Saturn were good friends, and I just kind of got on that team. And for the most part, we were pugging it out for a lot of that season because we didn't have an IGL again. I think Austin was IGLing us, and
Okay.
no discredit to him, but he's just no IGL. He did his best. He did his
Yeah.
absolute best, but he was just not. He was just not like an IGL. So
Yeah.
again, it was loose. We were hardly practicing. That's when we had Wilkie as well. He's another
Yeah.
one of my good friends. So that team was fun, but obviously, we were just pugging. It wasn't that serious when we were doing like prac days, like super long prac days. We'd do like maybe a couple scrims and then like just hop into whatever match we were playing. So
Mm.
again, that very loose kind of style that I was kind of used to at the time still, but now I know like that me as an opper, I'm way better in like a team environment. Like going back to that environment was something that happened with Strife. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
going from like being super super team oriented like on the past Strife to this Strife was definitely a struggle for me. Going back to that kind of loose style because like that loose style that I'd played before Strife and then after it was just like completely different because I completely adjusted to playing like as a team and playing my role and stuff like that. So um but yeah, that Recon 5 team was just, you know, we were just pugging. It was still a good experience. I was still learning a lot from being in the ECL division, just playing matches. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So next season, I think you kind of transitioned out of that pugging because I believe that season 38 is when you see Stamina join the roster.
Yeah.
So that's the first time that you actually play, at least in a more structured sense. I'm not sure if this season specifically was structured, because again, I imagine that Stamina had a lot of pieces to work on. But
Yeah.
walk me through what it was like, introducing yourself to playing underneath that IGL and what that was like for you.
At the start of Strife, Stamina was we looked at him as just an IGL. We just needed an IGL, and we'd heard of like some rumors about him, some negative things, but we just went in with an open mind, like give him a chance. Like we've heard good things about him as well, and at the start it was definitely like a struggle for Strife. Like we took a while to figure things out, which is like our roles and like just certain players were playing different roles that just did not fit them,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of like it was a very big learning curve because like we weren't playing that just like randomness of Counter Strike. We were just kind of running out. We were trying to play like a very very like team based game or team based like style, and it took a lot and it took a lot of practice and definitely a few months for it to fully start like coming together. And so at the start, it was definitely a struggle. It was a struggle for me because, like I talked about before, on my other teams, I hadn't really played that super structured style in a while. It was more just like I just been pugging with teams for a couple seasons. So like it was definitely like a little bit of adjustment for me, and I think for most people on the team to kind of get used to Stamina's IGLing style and just how we like to call and just how we like to play. And after like a bunch of role swapping, position changing, like we eventually got it figured out. But
Mhm.
it definitely was it was definitely a hike.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, during that time, you also had like plenty of tournaments that you were playing it out. I mean, you specifically have been traveling to a lot of the lands, like I guess like local frag lands, stuff like that. Um, so we can dive into that as well as to your ability to improve, because again, a very like speedy rise for you, just given the fact that a lot of players don't necessarily thrive when they're underneath a team in ECL for that long, just given the lack of advanced experience. Usually it is like you can visually see that experience. So, I mean, what do you
Yeah.
accredit these like local lands to your ability as an opera today?
Local lands, I've always go to little local lands
Yeah,
wherever they are, just with whoever, with our
yeah,
Infinity Gauntlet bosses, whatever,
right,
whatever team. Those are more of just like for fun, I guess. But at the same time, like just playing on land and just like playing under that environment is something that is good.
yeah,
Like I'm no longer any sort of scared of land, like any sort of at least land in the United States. That's not gonna ever throw me off my game. Like I'm very used to that now, and that's definitely something that has like helped me a lot, especially with like Fragadelphia.
hmm,
Like when we won Frag, that was like um felt like at home. Like I'd been to all those tournaments. I've been in that environment multiple times where that experience definitely helps you out. So I can definitely credit like me going to all those local lands to having success at lands like in the future.
yeah, yeah.
So
I mean,
100%.
we could speak a little bit on that. Obviously, I think Frag 16 was one of your all's heights for sure.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty sick run. Obviously, like a lot of teams were heading into that one favored. A lot of people were interested in the Apex Rebels roster. There was the RBG Carpe Diem, I believe is what they were still going by
Yeah,
uh,
Carpe Diem.
underneath during that event. So you had a couple of favored teams, but you all ended up. I mean, even Bad News Bears was here. There's a lot of good teams here. Gaming Gladiators. These are all rosters that you would think could do some damage. ATK and Team One, right? So
Yeah.
you go down the list, and obviously you were on a lot of people's like attentions. You guys were definitely rising. You're kind of becoming a namesake team in NA as Strife. You're playing in all the qualifiers, all of that. We knew Strife
Yeah.
had some funding to him, so we expected some high things. But you had a pretty rough draw in the opening matchup for this event. You had to take down the Carpe Diem roster. I mean, starting things off, you took down one of the favorites. Did that give you all a lot of confidence to try and close this one out?
100%. I told Danny before that game, I was like, if we beat Carpe Diem, we're winning the event, and it ended up happening.
Yeah,
We knew like that was just kind of like if we got over that hump, then like I
yeah,
just knew that we were just gonna win. Like after that match, after that BO3 arc, all of our confidences were so high, like we were not gonna lose the event.
yeah,
We didn't care who we would have played after them, but they were definitely a really tough opponent. Like at the time, we had just never beaten them in any sort of match. Like we'd always just lose every BO3. We'd always lose to them. Like they're kind of like our kryptonite.
yeah,
We'd always like take a map off them, but still lose. So it was always very agonizing playing them too. They were a very frustrating team to play against, which is how structured they are. And
Yeah.
but that series, I remember we lost first map, and then we just completely regrouped, and took the second map, and then map 3 was like
That
overpassed.
was
Was like
insane.
5 overtimes.
Yeah.
Most stressful game of one of the most stressful games I've ever played. Just
Yeah.
countless overtimes, and as soon as we won that series, though, like that was just insane confidence for us because we've never beaten Carpe Diem before. We beat them at LAN in that style, like that really, really boosted all of our confidences.
Yeah, and then you had Team One up next. I think I remember a story about your mouse being broken for that first map.
Yes.
But then you guys were able to follow up with a pretty easy like reverse sweep. I kind of left. I remember leaving during that map, actually going to get pizza with Jackson because I was like, oh man, Strife are out. Like this is gonna. I thought it was gonna be such a miserable frag because Apex Rebels were had I think already taken down ATK, if not we're on the process of taking down
Yeah.
ATK. So I was like, man, is it really gonna be Team One versus Apex Rebels in the grand finals? But yeah, I came back and you guys were up a map, and then you were playing that third map out and doing pretty good. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was obviously a great event. But then your team kind of entered into what I would say is some slight turmoil. And by that I mean like subbing in and out a lot of roster moves for quite some time.
Yeah.
So 60 obviously exited. And then you had to bring
Yes.
in a couple of new players. How did that whole thing go for you, right? Because that's got to be a tricky thing. You talked about becoming more of a structured team, and having that fluidity and that fifth spot is a bit tricky when that structure is so important.
It was very tricky. After the thing with Danny happened, it was kind of just like a very big kill for everybody. It was just a kind of a stab in the heart. It's just like,
Mhm.
everything we had just worked for, everything we just gained. We boot camped for a week before Fragadelphia, getting that experience. We almost made the major.
Yeah.
Um, like that was a pretty big blow. I think just to like the overall team environment, just like we ended up picking up Darty after that, right, as a sub for that season,
Yeah.
and big credit to Darty with that. Like he came in and he really like gave a lot of light to our team. Just a lot of like, he's very funny. He's very like energetic.
Yeah.
He always brings that energy. So he brought that to our team in a time that we very much needed it, and it definitely helped our team. But me as a player, like it definitely like just threw off my count or just like my motivation. I would say is just like when that happens and you're playing with a sub and you kind of have to just teach them everything that we do again and go through that whole process of learning. It's just it gets tiring.
Yeah.
It gets exhausting. Like making roster changes, I just would just rather have the same 5 for
Right.
the same time period, obviously. But like Darty did come in and brought a lot, and I'm very thankful that we picked up him instead of anybody else because he is what we needed for that time on our team. But again, I kind of struggled because just filling in a new player and like playing around it, and just like my overall, I would say, motivation for the game was kind of low.
Yeah.
Um, and Danny was probably one of my the person on the team I was closest to, so
Mhm.
kind of sucked that he did that. I was just like,
Yeah.
just a shake of the head,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it definitely was a big setback for us because we could have still carried our momentum. We were still really good. We were still a really good team. We'd proven ourselves, and that even though we lost a couple sleep matches, like we could have obviously gotten back to the point that we were at when we won frag, and that was just very disappointing losing what we had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do remember you all like very quickly, bouncing back again. You I believe dropped Eris at one point. Not dropped Eris, but Eris ended up departing as well.
Yeah.
At some point there in the mist, and I thought that he was, kind of a not necessarily core member of your roster, but he was important. Yeah, I think he had his own roles, and he was doing a lot better. He was improving. He
Yeah,
had
he
that.
played a big piece in our team. He played a very important role,
Yeah,
that kind of like support player role that like is very, very, very undervalued in a team. Like that will like make or break a team. If Cloud9 cut Inters, they would be a lot worse.
yeah,
And that's not because Inters is some god, but he just knows how to like play that role so well, and it's such an important role. So it definitely hurt
yeah,
losing him. But and then that's when we picked up Fates.
Yeah.
We got Fates, and then Rec. That was our roster after that. And
Yeah.
then so obviously Fates was living with me, so he was living in my basement. I was always with Fates. It was a very cool experience to be with him. I love Fates. I love the
Yeah.
time that I got to spend with him on Strife. He's one of my favorite teammates I've ever had,
Mhm.
without a doubt. Um, but like then again, like just air sleeping was like a shock. He he just decided to step down just one day. He just lost his motivation.
Yeah.
He was kind of burnt out and he just needed a break. So and that was definitely just difficult again because we had Fates, we had gotten Fates, and we had two very good practice weeks with Fates where we just when Fates got here, we pushed all of our matches back like a month. So we
Right.
would have a
For
month
ECL.
of just practice. Like we weren't gonna play any qualifiers, we weren't gonna do anything, we were just gonna practice. And it was like 2.5 weeks into that, it was going super, super well. Like we were doing extremely well with Fates and he was playing extremely well himself. And like then Eris left and it was just like, what the fuck? Like we just lost 3 weeks of hard work and practice, not 8-hour days, just like that. It's like, well, the last 3 weeks that we just practiced just kind of just went to waste. Then we have to pick someone else up and
Build
like
that up
slot them
again.
in and build it up again. So that always has like a very big toll. It's just like it's just like, here we go again. Another player. Like, no offense to anybody that has ever picked up in that new player role. It's just like when you have to go through that whole process again, it's very, very tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean 100%. And all the while, like there's some of your biggest events kind of your team's life coming up as well. I mean, in the mix there, you guys had the Pro League conference that you were able to bring over, a good roster in, right? You had Rec at the time, you were still slotting him in, but it was
Yeah.
a very tough event. Obviously, this is lot of, if not everyone besides Fate's first international LAN.
Yep.
So, walk me through your whole experience with that as a roster and trying to rebuild at the time, because I think you guys had a little bit of space with Rec. You had time to kind of rebuild, so um, walk me through that first international competition that you all were able to enter into.
Yeah. So we picked up Rec, and basically, I don't know the timing of it, but we picked up Rec, and then we found out we were going to Sweden. So,
Yeah.
um, and that kind of screwed us a little bit, just because we had to push all our matches that we pushed back up so we could play them all before we went to Europe, and we just had a week read like a match every day, and it was
Yeah.
just and
And you
with
weren't
Rec we did
prepared.
not. Yeah, we weren't that prepared, even though we went 7-0 that season.
Oh.
I think with like a
Yeah, yeah, you
forfeit
got
win.
a MIBR forfeit win, right?
That was a We got two forfeit wins.
Yeah.
We got one over PA and then one over MIBR because
There you go.
that's when PA signed to
Oh
EG.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, we went 7-0 that season, even though we hardly had like any practice with Rec. We didn't even get fully like enough time to slot him in and teach him everything. It was still kind of like figuring things out, playing
Yeah.
matches. Um, so yeah, we played all our matches. We ended up technically going 7-0, which was like a pretty big confidence boost for us all going to Europe. And we were dealing with like some sort like a little bit of team problems before going to Europe, just like internal issues. But like we were all just more. There's the fact that we were going to Europe just like kind of pushes that away. Like it was the excitement of going to Europe is just like
Mhm.
that's all you think about. That's all you wake up and think about. That's all you think about when you play CS is like going to Europe. It's like
Yeah.
so that whole thing was very, very exciting for me. I was so excited to go and play at that event. And we did a boot camp in Poland for a week before that. Um, that boot camp was pretty good for us. There was definitely some things that I won't go into that kind of threw off our boot camp for us a little bit, where it wasn't as like we didn't take as much out of it as we could have,
Mhm.
which was definitely kind of frustrating. But it was still just such an incredible experience to be like at a gaming facility, at the Kingwin gaming facility, which was super nice. It
Yeah.
was such a great facility being there and just scrimming every day. We'd play 6 scrims normally every day just against all bunch of European teams, and that was just like a very, very cool eye-opening process. for me especially, just to like go to Europe and to like even just in scrimmages, just doing like pretty well against like European teams in scrimmages. Like, we were playing like people who were like in the top 10. Like we were scrimmaging really good teams at
Yeah.
times, and when you're playing those teams and like especially when you find success, it's like completely eye opening going from like practicing in North America to practicing in Europe and like just how everything is. I learned so much. I feel like I got so much better, and I kind of like realized like my potential as a player from that boot camp, just like knowing like how good I can be just from like being there and improving so much is like wow, like if I was here for a month, like I could improve way like way more.
Yeah.
And so we had that boot camp and we went to Sweden for the tournament, and our first match against Tyloo. And I think honestly, like that tournament could have gone a completely different way for us based on like a couple things. Based on like if we played certain teams. I feel like
Yeah.
we got two very like weird and kind of unlucky draws for the most part. Like Tyloo was something like we couldn't prepare for. Like
Yeah.
every region in this game plays the game a different way, and
Mhm.
like being in Europe for a week, you kind of learn every like even every like country like every like country in Europe like kind of plays a different brand of Counter Strike, and it's very interesting, and it's very like it's something that's very cool. Like playing it's like a Portuguese team to playing it's like a Danish team. It's like they play completely different
Yeah.
games of Counter Strike. So like everybody plays different games of Counter Strike, and like for a North American team having to play a Chinese team is very like difficult because they play a completely different version of Counter Strike. Like I was sitting there watching their demos, like oh my god, like how do I counter this? Like
Yeah.
what in the world? Like so and there's definitely like I could speaking for myself, like I wouldn't say I was nervous. It was just like that atmosphere and just like being in Europe and just like pressure, like that kind of pressure, that like pressure, those kind of being like that NA team that is at that event and like you have something to prove, like you want to prove yourself is like
Yeah.
just that pressure kind of got to me a little bit, I would say. Tyloo series was kind of rough. Um, we had two very close maps. They were tied at both points. Like I think
Mhm.
it was like 11-11 and then like 10-10, and then we
Yeah.
just lost out, ran out of steam. And that was kind of unlucky losing that game being so close and then just completely losing it in the end. Was very sad losing that game. But then again, I have never played a team like Tyloo in my life, and I never will again until I play another team from China
Mhm.
or Asia or any team over there because it is completely different, and it definitely like threw me off guard a little bit just how they play. And just they're very aggressive. They're in your face. They do not care. Like um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely an experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
Uh,
was looking through the results, and it's not like, again, you come into this event and expectations are that you obviously do well, but for the most part, I think it's gaining that experience. And yeah, at
Yeah,
least for Tyloo's, since they're very used to these kind of online, or not online, but, studio broadcasts where you have to qualify through, and I think that they definitely had that advantage
yeah, 100.
over
percent
you all. As for Kawana, um, do you want to walk through that whole series and what that meant to you all?
Yeah, Kawana was a weird one. Like I think we were very confident going into that because we all thought they were very bad, and we thought we were kind of just
Hmm.
gonna walk over them. Completely wrong. I don't get too ahead of ourselves, but
Yeah.
that, and again, those guys like Crystal is like a mastermind of the game. That guy has been IGLing this game since I was a baby. Um, he he's a very talented IGL, and I was very like kind of thrown off. Like the way they played like was very like hard to play against. For me, I remember I just could not get into either of the maps that series at all, just because I feel like they never gave me like an opening. They never like slipped up. They're always like just like manipulating rotates and like doing stuff that would catch off like an NA team like us, and it worked.
Yeah.
Um, so that series, losing those two games, definitely sucked. Map one we were like half asleep, and then like map two I tried to bring like a ton of energy. I tried to you could see me on the cameras on the
Yeah.
broadcast just screaming in the background. Like I was trying to bring a lot of energy,
Yeah.
and
Get that like
unfortunately,
Fragadelphia Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Like, yeah, I was definitely those. I had definitely some choice words for those guys that they
yeah,
were hearing. But just we fell short. We had a pretty good chance on Inferno actually. I think we won T side and we're up, but again, just fell through. Just could not close out the game, and that sucked. That
mm,
loss really sucked. I was completely demoralized after that. It was a
yeah,
really bad feeling, and to go out like that, to not win a map, obviously we had 4 very close maps, but to not win one or to not even win a series was
right.
just it just sucked. And
So, so heading into this event, you have kind of this turmoil that you mentioned, just some slight issues, but maybe you can swipe those aside because you got Stockholm or you got the conference up ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
So coming back home almost immediately, if I'm not mistaken, that's when Stamina ends up leaving. Am I correct in that?
That was after the ECL playoffs that
Okay,
we
gotcha.
lost like both games. We lost to Gaming Gliders and Piop, but that was like after we got home, it was like a really weird time. Like everybody had COVID. Everybody in our
Okay,
team had COVID,
dang.
and Rec couldn't even play our first BO3. He was too sick to even get on his computer and play.
Yeah.
So we played with like a sub versus Gaming Gladiators, and then lost to Piop, and we literally just all had COVID and we're dead.
Mhm.
And after that, just kind of like everything kind of blew up, I would say, with just like all that frustration and like all of our problems that we put aside just came back. Just again, I don't want to.
Yeah.
We don't have to get into that. Don't have to do anything or don't have to talk about that. But just it all just came back. It all just came out and everything just blew up. And then our Bobby decided that he was gonna leave. And with Bobby, it was more of like there we weren't planning on playing with Bobby after that season. Is all I'll say. Like he wasn't.
Hmm.
He was either gonna be cut or he was gonna leave, and he just chose to leave. Um, so that was that, and then after that, we just had just complications with our org that again I won't get into, but basically we couldn't bring Fates back. We couldn't bring our coach Tohio back, which was a big loss. I loved Tohio; he was an awesome coach.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we couldn't bring Tohio back. We couldn't bring Fates back. So then it was just me, Joel's, and Rec left, and after that, it was like we just had to
Demoralized.
rebuild. Yeah, after that, I was just like, that was
Yeah.
after from that point on, like after our team kind of blew up after that, after Europe, it's just I've never like gotten back on track from that. Even today, like that put me. I was dealing with like from that team, I was dealing with like a lot of out of game issues that
Yeah.
like just made me play worse in game. Like I was just not in a good spot and just like dealing with a lot of issues in my real life and my personal life, and that definitely had a very big impact on how well I would play and like just like my motivation for the game, just like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, after that we had the rebuild, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what like how to approach it, how to
Hmm.
like go about it, like who was gonna IGL, who are we gonna get, are we gonna get a coach? Like we had no idea. And me, I kind of just stepped up and was like, I can like try. I'll like be. We basically agreed that we were gonna just have like a very like loose system, and
Yeah.
but I was gonna
Do
kind
some
of be
mid
that guy.
rounding
Yeah,
sometimes.
mostly just going like just very basic Counter Strike and just mid rounding
Yeah.
with not just one main in game leader, but I took it kind of upon myself just to kind of fill that role of a leader that had been that Bobby that Bobby was our in-game leader. He was like
Yeah.
kind of like our leader figure, and when we no longer had him, we needed someone to step up, and I just kind of tried to be that guy, kind of be that leader, like to make calls. Basically on that team, like I felt like it was always I'd always hold myself accountable to like if no one was like talking or we didn't have like a strat or something was wrong, I would take it upon myself to kind of like suggest something or kind of like or to call something. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like my role, and it was again, something I've never really done. Like, so that team was like just it was really hard. We went through like our tryouts, trying to get like we tried out a lot of different people. We had a lot of different options, some crazy, some weird, some we had a lot of options, and we ended up just going with Darty and Jitter.
Mhm.
Darty is one of my best friends that I made from Counter Strike, even outside the game, and then Rec is really good friends with Jitter, and I
Yeah.
knew Jitter from Secret Club. I really liked playing with Jitter when I was on Secret Club, so that was the roster we moved forward with, and that roster, like us 5 players, like are all like very young and very, very, very talented. Like I will speak for like everybody on the roster that all 4 of those guys can do like a lot in this game. They're all very, very like talented
Yeah.
individuals, and just like for the start of it, when we didn't have a coach, it was just like it was a very long process, like starting from square one.
Yeah.
Like at least when we had Bobby, we had somewhere to start. We'd already like started something. We just had to like bring that extra person and like fill them in. But
Mhm.
this time it was like we had nothing. We had like some stuff from what like we had with Bobby and like that structure, that old Strife, but like we literally just had to start from square one,
Yeah.
and it was a long, long process, and it definitely took a toll on everybody. It was very frustrating for everybody. Um, you, it was just very evident that everyone was very frustrated with how like we were playing, and how that roster, like we didn't qualify for the RMR, we didn't make playoffs in ECL. Like there was just frustrating loss after frustrating loss, and but I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but
No, you're
we
good.
picked up Becker
Yeah.
as a coach, and he definitely helped a lot. Becker was a very big attribution to the team in terms of just being that leader that I was kind of trying to be, just trying to like bolster the troops or do or whatnot. But like Becker was actually like that kind of leader figure that we needed, that kind of dad figure in the team, so to speak, that where he just like kept us in line, and he's a very smart guy. Like in terms of like his view on the game, and just like how he would like to approach the game and stuff like that. He brought a lot of valuable things to our team, but at the end of the day, we just didn't have a leader. We didn't have an IGL.
Mhm.
It's really hard for a team like that to work with no IGL. And like, granted, we had like aside from like Joel's Rec, Jitter, and Darty are all of like very, very talented and very, very good players, but they're also like all kind of quiet in terms of like being like a leader, which is not like a bad thing, but it's just like when you have like that, like you just don't have like that leader presence, and you don't have like
Yeah.
that main IGL, where that like that guy that if like a mid round is said, and your in-game leader says it, you're gonna trust it. But if it was like a problem on our team, is like if someone makes a mid round, someone's gonna like doubt it and be like, no,
Yeah.
like we shouldn't do that, and then it just causes like hectic and chaos, and
It's like
we
Stewie being the only like hype person on Liquid at one point, right? Where
yeah.
he's the only one trying to be like the emotional leader in some of those rounds. It's difficult to carry all that weight on one
Yeah,
person's shoulders.
yeah. And Darty was also kind of that emotional
Yeah.
leader, but he's not he's just really loud.
Yeah.
He's more of just like a hype guy. He
Okay.
he just gets everyone hype.
Yeah.
He's just like, let's fucking go. He just gets super hype. He's just
Sweet.
hilarious. He's just
Yeah.
very big, like
Okay.
moral boost to the team. But like I said, we just had too many problems and too many just like we didn't have a leader. And just after some time, it was just like it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I'm not like it was really sad to leave that team, or just to not play with them anymore. Joel's I've played with for last like 400 days of my career. Like I love
Right.
David. He's one of my favorite teams I've ever played with, one of the best teammates I've ever had. So like, and then just Strife in general, I've been with them for 400 days. I was literally like there when we picked out the name for the organization, and been with them all the way through like a very big part of my career and very big chapter. And just it is like something that I had to close, and something that I'm happy that is kind of like in the past.
Yeah.
And I've learned a substantial amount about like just like myself as a player and like as a person from like these experiences, and it's helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot, and I feel like I've grown a lot. But it's just something that was just not going to work out, and
Mhm.
sometimes that just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so speaking on that, what exactly is the game plan coming up, right? Because I think you are probably, if I got to be honest, looking for some time off, maybe a chance to like reset mentally before you hop back into it. I don't know where you're at in that space, but in the future, I mean, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking to try and go back into it, maybe in an advanced team, or are you looking for something higher? Because I mean, just to kind of not necessarily put you on a parallel to one of your former teammates, but right, Stamina. He went nose deep into a brand new project, and he's looking to kind of do a similar team where he brings an identity to a new roster. He tries to build up a bunch of new players, right? And that's kind of what IGLs have to do. As for you, what is the expectation?
Well, I'll go with what you said. I definitely needed a break. I definitely needed like
Yeah.
just a moment to just pause and just like reset. And it's something I like was even debating like 2 months ago on Strife. Was like I was heavily debating taking a break, and I almost did. And just like I was like just in a really bad like just spot in terms of like my motivation and like just
Yeah.
like taking care of myself outside of the game. Like I was just in a very bad spot in my real life, and that definitely just like has a very big impact on you in game. And like being able to like now just kind of like rest and just like relax is something that is I definitely needed, and I'm definitely very thankful for. And I'm taking this time to like really like make my like just better myself as like a person, just like doing healthier things, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So that's been very beneficial, and it's something that's very like I'm very gracious for. But in the future, um, I have like a couple things that or just like a couple people that I'm talking to, a couple opportunities. But I'm looking for like just the right opportunity, and the right opportunity to me is just like on one of the better North American teams. I
Yeah.
don't see myself kind of taking that step back. I feel like at this point in my career, like I am ready to compete at like that top level at like a high, even like just at a very like higher level than that I was at with Strife.
Hmm.
And I feel like I have those capabilities and those abilities, and just that I need that opportunity to kind of show like what I can be, and like and just to show my potential. So
So I mean, something that I was just kind of doing just as like a little mental practice or something for this interview was going through some of the best operas in North America, and obviously like right now, currently playing, right? Not necessarily um, of all time, but
yeah.
if you discount Cirque, you discount Bowden, you discount any other opera from another
Yeah.
region, you are one of the better and more experienced operas now in North America. You got your Wiz, you got your OC, you got your Pone Alone, right?
Yeah.
All very good operas, and you're kind of up there in the top 5, top 10 regions. So obviously that should put you on a bunch of people's markets. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. Um, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say or really shout out, but do you have anything you want to shout out before we
I can
close it up?
I can shout out some people.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Um, shout out my family. They're gonna watch this.
Yeah.
Hi, mom. I love you. Shout out my girlfriend, Reese. Love you too. All my past teammates on Strife. All the people that have been following me and been supporting me throughout my career. I, I see every single comment. I see all the people that send me DMs and support me, and it means a lot. And I am going to take time to myself to really better myself to be the best person and the best player that I can be for my next opportunity, and really show like what I am made of and what I'm capable of, because that my potential and my capabilities are something that I don't even think that I know. I feel like I can do very, very big things in this game, and my motivation is very high. And I feel like this is the time where I can make that huge jump and be on one of those top teams and be one of those top players in the region.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate the interview. Of course, I'm looking
Thank you,
forward
man.
to seeing what you have next, man. Always a big fan of you since your advanced days. So
Always a big fan of you, man.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, that's been all for this episode of Xner's Fireside Chats, guys. We'll be back hopefully sooner than later for some more interviews. Peace out, though.
Peace.